Hello and welcome to part 3 of a series that I'm doing to find my top 5 decks of 2023. If you are new here and you haven't seen any of the series so far, head over to video 1.1 where you can see my rating scale and my rating criteria. Here's a little flash of it right now. And if you're interested in the decks that I'm going to cover in this section of the video, head into the description box and I'll have a list of all the decks that I'm going to cover in this video. Here is our top list so far of the decks that we covered under $30. In this section, we're going to cover all the decks under $45. Let's get started. The first deck on the list is the Celtic Dragon Tarot. I got this back in October. And I got it on eBay for $16. The current Amazon price is $31. This deck had been rumored to be going out of print. I'm not sure if that's true or false, but I thought just in case, I would get myself a copy. I really enjoy Lisa Hunt's artwork, and I would consider myself a bit of a collector of her work. So let's have a look at card usability and the card stock. The box is the really annoying large box that holds the cards really awkwardly, so I wouldn't say the box is that usable. I do keep mine in the box, but it's quite annoying, but most people I think would just take it out of the box. So for card usability, the card stock is actually right on the edge of being quite thin and flimsy. It shuffles quite well. It feels quite sturdy. Mine is a used copy, and it has got this really almost a two-part bow. It's kind of bowing this way, and then it's also bowing at kind of a weird angle, so it's not even sitting flat on the table here. And it's just been in the box, securely in the box. So for card usability, for that reason, and the fact that the card stock isn't really that great, and we're at the $31 point. So I'm expecting a little bit more from the decks here as far as card usability and card quality when I'm paying, a higher end mass market price. So for card usability, I'm going to give this the unamused face, but a high unamused face score of 36 points. As far as the versatility, this is going to fit in the same category as the other dragon deck that we saw for me. I'm going to be pulling it out when I want specifically that dragon energy. This one has a little bit more in my mind as far as versatility than the other dragon deck, because it also has that storytelling element to it. It feels a little bit more storybook. So that for me is a particular type of reading that I like to do. I get in that particular mode when I want my decks to deliver that. And I can imagine using this in that way, even when I wasn't specifically looking just specifically for dragon energy. So I'm going to give it the neutral face for versatility, but also on the high end of the neutral face. And I'm going to give it a score of 57. For energy and personal connection, this deck has really good energy. It's really pleasant. It feels really friendly. I haven't made a personal connection yet just because I haven't really used it that much, but I would imagine if I was using this even a few times, I think a personal connection would come, and I think it'd be a really positive one. So for energy and personal connection, I'm going to give this a smiley face, and I'm going to give it a score of 64. For readability, it comes with a great guidebook by DJ Conway, and which gives a description of kind of what's going on in the artwork and the divinatory meaning. I really love that. And I think the cards can be read really well just on their own without the guidebook. So we're going to give it the party face for readability, and I'm going to give it a score of 92. For uniqueness, I feel like there aren't really that many dragon tarot decks. Now, I think I have 2. There's probably a few more, but this specifically done in this way, and this with the gray borders here and the gray cards, I think this is quite unique. And I think if I made a personal connection with this deck and wanted this specific energy, I don't know that anything would really fill its spot. So I'm going to give this a smiling face for uniqueness, and I'm going to give it a score of 65. So that gives the Celtic Dragon Tarot a total score of 314 points and puts it in 23rd place in a tie with the Mind's Eye Tarot. Next on the list is the Cosmic Tribe Tarot. I got this one on Amazon in April and I paid $20 for it. The current price on Amazon is $32. It's in another one of those big annoying boxes. And that seems to be the theme for the $31, $32 decks. A lot of them seem to be in those larger boxes. Okay, we're going to have a nudity warning because this deck is pretty graphic in places. Let's have a look at the cards and the card usability. They're a little bit bigger. And so let's give it a shuffle and see how the cards are. They are glossy. It's not a bad shuffle. It's, this deck, it feels like the cards are cut a little bit unevenly, but it's not bad actually. They are a bit longer than a standard tarot size. So I'd imagine if you had smaller hands, that grip across, it's a little bit, it's a little bit uncomfortable, but not terrible. But definitely not something that I'm like excited to shuffle. It just kind of fits in that, like, I don't know, that I don't mind it, like, a means to an end, like it has to be shuffled, so let's shuffle it. So I guess for that reason, I'm going to give it the unamused face, and a score of 30. So let's look at versatility. So this deck is a little crazy. I mean, there's a lot going on. It feels like these people are on their, a spiritual quest, in the wild, with this wild energy, doing their own thing, connecting with spirit in their own way. It's certainly a vibe. It's certainly a mood. It's not every mood. I'm certainly not pulling this out for strangers or people I don't know. Far too many penises in the deck on display. So for versatility, it's going to get the unamused face and it's going to get a score of 20. So for energy and personal connection, this deck undeniably has a heavy amount of energy, this fire, like excited energy. And it's kind of a love it or hate it, but energetically it's kind of full power, So I'm going to give a smiley face for energy and personal connection, and I'm going to give it a score of 73. For readability, I think this deck is pretty, easy to read out of the box, a little bit abstract maybe without the guidebook. The guidebook is definitely helpful. The guidebook is really good. So for readability, I'm actually going to give it the neutral face, and I'm going to give it a score of 45. So for uniqueness, I think this deck is really unique. I think it has a unique energy, and the way that it does things is very unique. And I think that there are many decks that kind of look a little bit similar to this in style, but are actually quite different and do a different job. So for uniqueness, I'm going to give it the party face, because I think this deck would really enjoy having the party face, at least for one of its criteria. So I'm going to give it the party face uniqueness, and I'm going to give it a score of 92. That is going to give the Cosmic Tribe Tarot a total score of 260 points and put it into 36th place on the list. The next deck on the list is the Tarot Vampyres, which I got back in May for $32. That is the current price on Amazon. And if this were a list of the most hyped mass market decks this year, this would definitely be, I think, number one. So let's start with just an apology before I start. If this is a deck that you got excited about and it came into your collection and you bonded with it and you loved it, yeah, that didn't happen for me. So I got this deck after the hype died down a little bit, just out of curiosity to see if I was missing something online that I might find with it in person, because, you know, it didn't excite me like it did others in the tarot community. And it didn't really do anything more for me in person. So let's look at card usability to start off with. And it's in one of the big Llewellyn boxes, and it has the amazing Llewellyn guidebook. So card usability and shuffleability, it's really pleasant. So this one is going to get the party face for card usability and a score of 94. So let's talk about versatility for a moment as we look through the cards. I don't know. The storyline of the deck, it feels a little shallow to me. I don't get the hype of it at all. I think the color palette is really nice. I guess for me, I would just be using this kind of in general readings when I'm kind of feeling the need for this kind of vibe that the deck gives off. So for versatility, I'm going to put it like right in the middle and give it the neutral face and give it a score of 50. So for energy and personal connection, although I haven't made this like terrific personal connection with this deck, I mean, it clearly has that capability if so many people are resonating with this deck. And although it hasn't yet, I'm still open to the fact that at some point, like, the penny will drop, like, and it'll click and I'll figure out kind of what the magic is here. So I'm going to give it a smiling face for energy and personal connection, just for reputation's sake and for the possibility that could happen for me in the future. So I'm going to give it the smiling face, and I'm going to give it a score of 65. For readability, it's got a fantastic guidebook. Well, I don't think the guidebook is as amazing as everybody said. I think the problem with what happened with this deck and me is it's like when, everybody hypes up a movie or a book and it can't possibly live up to its reputation. So my expectations were so high with this guidebook. And I just felt it was like, okay, I mean, like above average probably, but just kind of in that okay range. But I think it is a very readable deck, saying that. So I'm going to give it the smiling face for readability, and I am going to give it a score of 60. So for uniqueness, for me, this doesn't feel like a very unique deck. The Dark Angels deck we saw earlier feels very similar to this. And also the Darkwood kind of feels a little bit similar to this. So for uniqueness, I am going to give it the unamused face, and I'm going to give it a score of 25. That is going to give the Tarot of Vampyres a total score of 294 points and put it in 25th place on the list between Dungeons and Dragons Tarot and the Hanson Roberts Tarot. The next deck on the list is the Tree Spirit Tarot. I got this for $32 back in February, and the current price is $32. Now this, for me, the guidebook is kind of essential, and the guidebook is a separate purchase. So including the guidebook, it does kind of double its price, but the deck itself is $32. So let's have a look at card usability. It shuffles really well. It feels like really sturdy cardstock. It does develop a little bit of a bow over time, but the shuffleability and the cardstock is high. So we're going to give this one a party face as well as some of the others with this similar cardstock and a score of 94. So as far as versatility, as I've already said, decks with without people, it's a little bit more of a struggle for me. And so for versatility, for me, this deck is really, I'm going to be using it in a reading if I really want this tree energy, right? And it doesn't really have a lot of uses in my collection. And I feel like I have this and I have, the Tarot of Trees, and they don't get a lot of use in my collection. I do love them and I'm glad I have them, but it's not a deck that sees the light of day all too often throughout the year. But when it does, its specific job really well. But for versatility, I'm going to give this the unamused face and a score of 22. For energy and personal connection, I would say of all the tree decks that I've seen, this one actually has the best energy. I guess the most like the most easy to connect with. It feels I don't know, it feels just like you can feel the energy of the place a little more. And I think it's because it's photographs and not drawings and anything. And I can take myself into the scene where the tree is resident. So I think the energy and personal connection for this one is pretty high. So I'm going to give it the smiling face, really high smiling face score of 78 for energy and personal connection. As far as readability, without the guidebook, for me, the image of just the tree, because I'm not coming to the table with prior knowledge of trees and their habitats and what they're known for and what they're, I need the guidebook. This isn't giving me, if I'm looking at this card, I'm just going on my known tarot meanings, but then the addition of the tree isn't really adding anything, until I pull the guidebook into the reading. So for readability for me, it's going to be on the low end, and it's going to be the unamused face and a score of 19. For uniqueness, although I think there are more and more, plant and tree decks coming out all the time, I think this one sits in a unique place because of the photographs and the way it's done and the way it's framed. Not entirely unique though. I think this energy could be replaced with another deck if this wasn't available to me. So I'm actually going to give it the neutral face for uniqueness and a score of 54. That is going to give the Tree Spirit Tarot a total of 267 points and put it in 34th place between the Necronomicon Tarot and the Erotic Tarot. Next on the list, we have the Beautiful Creatures Tarot. I got this fairly recently, the beginning of October, for $33 on Amazon, and that is the current price. And for card usability, I'm going to start again with the box. I don't know why sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Some of them just annoy me more than others. So it opens, it's a bigger box. We've had all big boxes so far in this video. And it opens like this. And then the cards are just spewed any which way, and they don't really stay in this, right? So if I want to sit this on my shelf like a book, I'm afraid that the cards are going to slip out because there's no magnetic closure. It doesn't really close securely, and those cards are like perfectly in their two piles here, and just no finger holes in here. This is just going all over the place. So when I'm getting into this box, I'm just kind of annoyed with it. So box design, no, it's a no for me. So that's where the card usability begins with this deck. These cards are more oracle size than tarot size, and it's quite a thick deck. So it's a bit of a reach to get my hands around, but I definitely can. But it's very stiff to shuffle, and bridge. It's a tough shuffle. If you want to riffle shuffle it. for sure. And the cards are nice and matte. I do like the cardstock type. They're just quite thick. The hand over hand is a really pleasant shuffle though. But I like to riffle shuffle and really get them mixed up like that. So when I go to kind of do my regular thing, it's just not pleasant. It's fine. It's fine. It does shuffle, but it's not the most pleasant thing in the world. And when I'm coming into that, I've already struggled to get them out of the box. So we're going to just give it the unamused face for card usability. And I'm going to give it a score of 18. So let's talk about the cards. And so let's start with card deck versatility. I think with Jasmine and Becca Griffith's artwork, like it is a certain mood. Like you've got to be in the mood for this artwork. But in that mood, I think that the deck offers a lot of versatility. I think you could use it in a general reading. I think that reading for other people though, you're kind of taking a chance because of the uniqueness of the artwork, and some people just don't care for it. So you have to know that the person you're reading for, that this artwork isn't kind of trigger them in any way. But for my own work, I think it's quite versatile. I would use it, I would pull it into any kind of reading. So it's kind of a half and half on its versatility. But I think it is more versatile than not. So I'm going to give it the smiling face for versatility, but on the low end, and I'm going to give it a score of 59. For energy and personal connection, I think this is kind of neutral. I'm not getting the best energy off the deck. And I don't know that I've made 100% of a personal connection, but kind of. So I'm going to give this the neutral face for energy and personal connection. And I'm going to give it a score of 53. For readability, this deck is very readable. I think that the images and the associated tarot that's chosen, I think it's done really well. I think the keywords on these cards make them really readable, and I think the guidebook expands on that. And it's a well-written guidebook. So for readability, I'm actually going to give this the party face. I'm going to give it a score of 82. So for uniqueness, Jasmine Beckett Griffith's artwork is in tarot world, quite frequently. So I think if I didn't have this deck, I don't know that I would miss it. I don't know that I couldn't get this energy elsewhere. But at the same time, with the keywords on the bottom of the card and just the largeness of the card and the way it's done, I think is a little bit unique. I'm going to give this the neutral face for uniqueness and a kind of high neutral face score of 53. That is going to give the Beautiful Creatures Tarot a total number of points of 265 and put it in 35th place between the Tree Spirit Tarot and the Erotic Tarot. Next deck on the list is the Tarot Apocalypsis. I got this in September for $33, and that is the current Amazon price. The deck, another big box, and this one, the book and the cards kind of sit side by side, and then they slide out of the side of the box. And the cards just, again, don't really stay in this tray, so I'm kind of afraid they're going to slip out on me. So that's where it starts with card usability. Not the best box design, but better than a couple of the others that we've just seen. So let's look at card usability and how the cards actually shuffle and function. The cardstock is really nice. It feels a little bit like the Llewellyn cardstock, but a little bit thicker, and the edges are a little bit sharp, just like a little rough, I would say. So card usability is good. The shuffle is good. I really like it, but because of these kind of rough edge and the box design kind of being a little bit lacking, or I am still going to give it the party face, but a low party face score of 80. So now if we had a value for money category, this deck would score very highly, because for its $33 price, you get the cards and then this massive hardcover book in color. So that's pretty impressive, I think. So I think, although I don't have a category for that, I think it's just worth noting. And then, you know, when I'm kind of comparing some of the other decks in this range, like, it's setting the standard, you know, pretty high for those to meet. When we like looked at the cosmic cards and the card quality is so low, you know, it's kind of, it's being put up against this at the upper end. So as far as, versatility, I think this deck is quite, versatile. I think, I can pull it into any reading, really, and it does have that kind of edge where it could be pulled into, you know, readings around a specific spiritual practice. The color palette is really bright and pairs pretty well with a lot of different things. So for versatility, I'm going to give this the smiling face, and I'm going to give it a score of 63. So for energy and personal connection, this deck has interesting energy. And I think it's really good. It makes me smile. I do enjoy this deck a lot. And I feel like I have made a personal connection with it. So for energy and personal connection, I'm going to give it the smiling face again and a score of 70. So as far as readability, I think that the images, on the cards give quite a lot to the, you know, traditional RWS meaning. The titles are really clear. There aren't any kind of name changes to remember, and the guidebook is absolutely amazing, like chocked full of information, and goes really deep into the meanings of these cards. So for readability, I'm going to give this the party face, and I'm going to give it a score of 97. So for uniqueness, I think this is quite a unique deck in its voice, and that comes through in the guidebook. I think the art style is quite unique within its style. So for uniqueness, I'm going to give this the smiling face, and I'm going to give it a score of 72. That is going to give the Tarot Apocalypsis a healthy score of 382 and put it into 8th place at the moment between the Black Tarot and the Cozy Witch. The next deck on the list, we have the Brave Snail Tarot. This I got back in February in a big eBay lot that I managed to get my hands on. There wasn't a description of any of the titles of the decks that were included. The pictures are really bad. And so I got a real bargain on about 6 or 8 decks. And on eBay, and I paid, it's hard to know exactly what I paid for this deck, but I'm kind of saying maybe $20. And the current price is $34. This deck is available, I think, on Game Crafter. I'll put a link in the description box, if you're interested. But, this is a really cool deck. And I had to look up, I hadn't seen it before myself before I received it. So I had to kind of try and track down what it actually was. But this is called the Brave Snail. So let's have a look at card usability. So this is the Game Crafter cardstock, this standard size. The cards are a little bit almost like glossy without the real shine on them. So it makes them a little bit slippery and quite easy to shuffle. So as far as shuffle, this is not as good as some of the other ones we've seen, but certainly very easy to shuffle, and no problems there. The corners are a little bit straighter than I prefer. So for card usability, this one's good, but for me, it doesn't have some of my like favorite elements. So I'm going to give it the smiley face, a high smiley face score of 68. So for versatility, this is a pretty, simple RWS clone in most every way. So for versatility, that makes it very versatile because, it can be pulled in any kind of reading. It pairs fairly well because it's kind of toned down. But it's not that like expansive. I'm probably not going to use it in any special spiritual practices. Although I did use it when we did the animal gnosis, and the animal was snail, but there isn't a snail in every card. So it was kind of just in name. There are snails in a couple of the cards though. So for versatility, I'm going to give this the neutral face and right in the middle, a score of 50. For energy and personal connection, I feel like this deck has really good energy. I did make a personal connection with this deck. It makes me smile. So I am going to give it the smiling face for energy and personal connection, and I'm going to give it a score of 70. For readability, there's no guidebook with this one, but it stays very close to the RWS. So, you can use, pretty much any RWS guidebook to read these cards, or, just read them as they are. So readability is good. It's not fantastic because it doesn't have a guidebook and it's not, expanding on those meanings for us. So for readability, I'm going to give it the neutral face, and we're going to give it a score of 52. For uniqueness, I don't think it's that unique. It's pleasant. I'm glad to have it, but I think there's many other decks, RWS clones. There's many other decks that kind of follow this color pattern. There's many other decks that are stylistically quite similar to this. So for uniqueness, we're going to give it the unamused face, and we're going to give it a score of 20. That is going to give the Brave Snail Tarot a total of 290 points and put it 31 on our list so far. Next on the list is the Land of Stories Tarot. I got this back in October for $35 on Etsy, and that it's its current price. And in October, I was feeling this real storybook vibe. It was when I was playing around with the Tarot of Tales a lot. So when I saw this deck, I really loved its kind of storybook vibe, and particularly how it looked at it almost through the lens of anime. And I thought the price was great for an indie deck. So let's have a look at card usability. As you can see, it's not shuffling fantastic. It's that kind of matte, kind of indie cardstock is what I would call it, but on the like lowest possible end of that. And I think that because the cards are a little bit thinner, but they're that texture of those kind of indie deck matte cardstock, I think it's making it kind of a little too floppy. So I have to really like slow down the riffle shuffle here. So, for card usability, it is really good. But it's not the best for sure, but we're only at the $35 price point here. So, we have to kind of take that into account, when kind of rating it here on card usability. It does come in a nice two-part box with raised gilding on it, with little guidebook. So for card usability, I am going to give this the smiling face and a mid to high smiling face score of 70. So for versatility here, let's have a look at the cards. So it reads pretty much as an RWS clone. And then in the majors, the stories that we see, they tell us what they are, which is helpful, but in the minors, that doesn't happen. And I'm using this deck when I really am in that mood for a deck that's going to kind of tell me a story. So like here we see the Eight of Pentacles, and you know, it to me, this says Pinocchio, right? Like this is Geppetto. But it's not going to say that in the guidebook. But the fact that I can kind of find a story in my mind that's kind of matching the cards, you know, it really works well for what I'm using it for. Now, I don't see me using this in any kind of other special spiritual practices. It's just going to be when I'm in the mood for this style of deck. So for versatility, I am going to give it the neutral face, but kind of a low neutral face score of 39. For energy and personal connection, I think this deck has really good energy, and I have connected with it. Not in a huge way, but I do really enjoy it. So I'm going to give it the smiling face, and I'm going to give it a score of 69 for energy and personal connection. For readability, it's got a guidebook in 2 languages. The suit names they don't give, but they're pretty obvious. And I don't think I would ever have any trouble kind of knowing which suit I'm in. And so I think readability is fairly good. It's not excellent. So let's just give it the neutral face for readability and a score of 57. Now, there are a few storytelling decks. I think this one does do it in a unique way. I like the kind of nod to fairy tales, and then you kind of have to find in your own mind what this fairy tale is and what it means to you. And I think that is quite unique in the way that it's doing it. I think the art style is quite unique. So I'm going to give it a smiling face for uniqueness, and I'm going to give it a score of 74. That is going to give the Land of Stories Tarot a score of 309 points and put it in 25th place between the Witchling Academy Tarot and the Tarot Nuages. Next on the list is the Earth Whispers Tarot. I got this deck on eBay new back in October for $38, and that is the current price on eBay. I hadn't heard anybody talking about this deck. I was just on eBay looking at other stuff and saw this deck and was quite taken with it. Let's have a look. It comes in a quite a nice tuck box, really. It's kind of almost a plastic coating over the cardboard, which is kind of giving it a little bit more durability than some of the other tuck boxes. So it's not bad as tuck boxes go. And the cards are on kind of like almost that plastic cardstock that almost feels a little bit linen, but it's more plasticky than linen, which gives the cards kind of a rough edge. So let's have a look at how it shuffles. I would imagine quite well. They are quite floppy, but it's got the mass market linen whistle on the ripple. So it is, I would put it kind of in that same category as far as cardstock, although these are much floppier. It shuffles really well. It's very easy to shuffle. Like it's you don't have to put a lot of pressure on the cards. You can be quite gentle and really get that ripple shuffle in. So it's a pleasant shuffle, not the best, by far not the worst. So I'm going to give it the smiley face for card usability, and I'm going to give it a high smiley face score of 78. So let's have a look at the deck and think about its versatility here. So we have really clear titles here. Now the suit names have been changed. So we have the Suit of Minds, the Suit of Earth. But the titles are really clear. The Suit of Spirit. and the suit of hearts, or heart. So for versatility, I feel like this deck is quite versatile. It's kind of in that category where it could work in everyday readings, but also could be really expansive in like special spiritual practices. I think these cards kind of lend themselves to path working just because of that kind of, you know, that almost entryway that the border on the card is kind of giving us. So I think for versatility, it's pretty high. I'm going to give this the party face for versatility, a low party face score of 81. So for energy and personal connection, I am going to say that this is really high as well because, you know, it's not that usual where I don't hear about a deck before I see it. And so I think the fact that I hadn't heard anything about this deck and just saw it and was immediately taken with it and had that immediate connection, you know, that's very telling. So I feel like for energy and personal connection, I'm also going to give this the party face. And I'm also going to give it a score of 81. So readability, as I said with the versatility, we do have the name changes. So it's kind of, you know, and then we have this, the architect, you know, the court names have changed. So that kind of can throw me off and force me to learn something, you know, the deck's own system. So when we're talking about readability, that's going to give it a lower score, you know, and so I'm going to give this the unamused face for readability, a high unamused face score of 37. For uniqueness, I think this is kind of middle of the road uniqueness. I think there are a few things that are doing that are quite unique, and in other ways, you know, a lot of this energy you could get from other decks. So for uniqueness, I'm going to give it the neutral face, right in the middle, high middle, with a score of 55. That is going to give the Earth Whispers Tarot a total of 332 points, and currently it will be in 19th place between the 5th Spirit Tarot and the To the Moon and Back Tarot. The next deck on the list is our first Kickstarter deck that we're seeing, and it is the Vacant House Tarot. So it comes in a tuck box. I actually got 2 versions of this deck. So I also have the tinned version in a different coloring, but we're just going to look at the full tarot size one, which comes in this tuck box. Much like the last one, this kind of quite heavily coated cardboard tuck box. So it is a little bit more sturdy than, you know, some of the other ones that we've seen when we're looking at the kind of, you know, the mass market tuck box decks. So for card usability, here's the backs. It's a really pretty deck. The card stock on this one is very interesting though. It is kind of a hybrid between the matte cardstock, a linen cardstock, a plastic cardstock. It's a very interesting cardstock, and pretty pleasant to shuffle because of that. It's got the less rounded corners that I don't care for as much, but for card usability and the way it shuffles, I think it scores pretty highly. So I am going to give this the party face for card usability, and I'm going to give it a score of 90. So let's look at versatility for this deck. This deck very much has a theme. And although it's not kind of explicitly stated in the guidebook, as far as what the theme of this deck is, for me, it's kind of a creepy dollhouse, I guess, would be its theme in my mind. So for versatility, I feel like I'm only going to use this like for readings for myself when I'm kind of feeling in that mood. I'm not really sure why this one doesn't make me think like other people, because it isn't really that jarring, but I feel like readings just for me or for close friends, probably. I don't see this fitting into any special spiritual practice necessarily. I can imagine that it could, for some people, go into that kind of inner child work realm. But I don't see it working in that way for me necessarily, but possibly. I don't know. So I'm going to give it a neutral face, but a high neutral face for versatility, and give it a score of 54. So for energy and personal connection, when I saw this deck on Kickstarter, I was really taken with it and really excited about it and felt kind of a personal connection to it right away. I think it has really nice energy. And honestly, like with the theme, that could kind of go either way, you know, with these kind of, I don't know, a little bit creepy dolls. And so I think it scores fairly highly for energy and personal connection for me, and I am going to give it the party face and a score of 84. For readability, the titles can be a little bit hard to read. I think the font is a little bit on the small side, and I don't really like this kind of banner style. I think it forces that font for the actual physical readability, you know, on the small side. And the titles kind of aren't jumping out at me. The guidebook is pretty basic. They didn't change the names of the suits though, or the majors. So for readability, I'm going to give it the neutral face, and I am going to give it a score of 48. So for uniqueness, I think this deck is pretty unique. And especially because they did like the different colorings too, which give kind of a different energy. So I'm going to give it a high score for uniqueness. And I'm going to give it the party face and a score of 85. That gives the Vacant House Tarot a score of 361 points and puts it in 12th place at the moment between the Cosmic Tarot and the Magicians, Martyrs, and Madmen. So the next deck on the list is the Pinup Tarot. This is going to be the last deck in this particular video. And the price for this one is $39. I got this back in October from eBay, and I actually had a purpose for getting this deck. I was considering rehoming my Hilda Tarot, which I've had for several years, and I just wasn't resonating with it, and I wasn't using as much as I kind of, I don't know, as I wanted to, and it wasn't quite giving me the energy I think that I want for I don't know, for that type of deck. So I wanted to try the Pinup Tarot to see if it would be a good replacement for it. And so we're kind of looking at it with that lens. So this is the first one we've had on the list, with this kind of, I suppose, indie box with the, you know, with the magnetic closure like this. It's a really nice box here. Cardstock is also good. It's that, you know, the indie matte cardstock. It's got a real softness to it though. The cardstock is quite thin. So let's have a look at card usability and how it shuffles. It shuffles really nicely. It does feel a little, I don't know, kind of flimsy in hand because it is quite thin. It feels like almost like a small deck. But it is nice to shuffle. I do really enjoy the box. So for card usability, I'm going to give it a pretty high score. I think, I'm trying to think if it fits into that party face category or just the smiling face. Let's give it the smiling face, but as high as I can go with that, with a score of 79 points. This deck wasn't quite what I expected, so I don't know that I found its place yet because it didn't fit into the spot that I thought it would. So for versatility, I think it is pretty limited. So I am going to give this the I don't know. I don't quite think it deserves the unamused face, just the neutral face with a score of 40. For energy and personal connection, I don't think I've made a personal connection with this deck. And as far as energy, it's pretty pleasant though. So I'm going to give it the neutral face again for energy and personal connection and give it a score of 45. As far as readability, the titles are really clear on this deck, and I do enjoy that kind of, the brown border with the contrasting, the nicely contrasting font color. So physical readability is really good. They haven't changed the names at all, and I really actually enjoy the font choice. Stylistically, this is a font I would choose. So I really enjoy it. The guidebook gives pretty basic meanings to the cards, but it does include a little guidebook. So I'm going to give it the smiling face for readability and a score of 60. So for uniqueness, I think there are, this is a category of deck. And within that, I think it's unique a bit, So for uniqueness, I am going to give it just the neutral face here for uniqueness and a score of 56. That is going to give the Pinup Tarot a total of 280 points and put it on as 37th on the list. So that's going to be the last deck here in this video, and that was the last one. That was $39. So in the next video, we're going to start with our $40 decks until we get up to $45. And we're really coming into that indie category. So in the next video, we're going to probably see a lot of indie decks, and we've kind of finished with the mass market decks. So join me in the next video as we find my top 5 tarot decks of 2023. Thank you so much for following along with me and joining me on this journey to go through my decks that I've received in 2023. It's been so fun to kind of look at them and explore them side by side. And it wouldn't be half as much fun without you guys joining me. So thank you so much for everybody who's commented and liked the videos and watched the videos. I really appreciate it. And I hope you're having a great December, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.
We're chasing snowflakes as they're falling down, and follow Rudolph all across the town. Play it with me under the mistletoe while Santa's